An aircraft flies between 3 islands. How long will it take to reach each island? A mathematician would ask how fast it travels, but a detective would ask when it went missing. What used to be an issue of mathematics has become an issue of mystery, lore, and speculation. At a certain point in the Atlantic is a vortex in which no aircraft returns. Why do planes vanish into thin air in that region? Is it a physical phenomenon? An act of nature's programmer? An interstellar mafia? Or our leaders? I, Detective Hudson, plan to answer these questions, or at least provide a plausible theory for the wormhole of the skies.
Land ho!
The year was 1505. La Garca, a ship that was on its way back from Hispaniola, while under the control of Juan de Bermudez, a Spanish navigator that discovered the island by accident. The island was named after him. Bermuda is an archipelago consisting of as much as 181 islands, but appears to form one land mass with the islands so close together. Bermuda had no native population when it was discovered, and it was mainly used as a pit stop for European ships on their voyage in the Atlantic. In 1930, a Stinson Detroiter seaplane flew to Bermuda from New York City. It was the first aircraft to successfully fly that route. 6 years later, German-based Deutsche Lufthansa began attempting flights with seaplanes from Berlin via the Azores, with the flights ending in New York City. In 1937, Imperial Airways and Pan Am began operating scheduled flights with the flying boats from New York and Baltimore to Darrell's Island in Bermuda. In 1948, regularly scheduled airline service began to operate at Kindley Field. With no rivers or freshwater lakes, the only source of fresh water is rainfall, which is collected on roofs and stored in tanks. Due to the vastness of and limited solid land on top of strict regulations, Bermuda's economy is almost entirely dependent on tourism. Bermuda's proximity to America made it ideal for summit conferences between British prime ministers and US presidents. So the East Coast version of Hawaii, its own history and culture. An ideal vacation destination. Why exactly has it developed such a mysterious reputation? While the island itself is just an island, the ocean surrounding it has caused even the wisest of navigators to have chills down their spine. The Bermuda Triangle is a region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, roughly between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. It has been the center of legends and lore in the realm of mystery. One of the earliest claims of mysterious occurrences in the region was by Edward Jones in the Miami Herald. In his article titled, "Seas Puzzles Still Baffle Men in Push-Button Age," he writes, "It's a small world? No, it's still the same vast globe the ancients knew, with the same misty limbo of the lost." He continues, "We think it is small because of speeding wheels and wings and the voice of radio which comes out of the void. A mile is only a minute's travel by wheel or a few seconds' flight, but it is still a mile." The Sandra carried radio. It was a 350-foot freighter which sailed with 12 men on board from Miami to Savannah. Their 300 tons of insecticide were loaded for Puerto Cabello, Venezuela. The Sandra sailed and disappeared without a trace. These and other modern mysteries have established a roll of about 135 persons who went forth confidently into a world they thought small. But it is the same big world the ancients knew, into which men and their machines and ships can disappear without a trace. All of this became fueled by the string of vanishing ships and aircraft. One of the first was the infamous Flight 19. December 5th, 1945. Just after 2 p.m., 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers departed U.S. Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale for a routine training flight with Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor acting as the flight's leader. The squadron was part of the U.S. Navy and was conducting a routine navigation training exercise out of Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The mission was known as Navigation Problem Number 1, which involved a triangular flight path that took them east from Fort Lauderdale to Hens and Chickens Shoals, then north to Great Stirrup Cay, and finally back to the naval base. On the first leg of the flight, everything went as planned as they dropped practice bombs without incident. As the group began to turn north for the second leg of the journey, trouble began for Flight 19. At approximately 3:45 p.m., Fort Lauderdale's flight tower received a message from Taylor, who reportedly sounded confused and worried. "Cannot see land," Taylor said. "We seem to be off course." "What is your position?" the tower responded. Tower personnel peered out into the clear day in the direction where the planes were supposed to be operating, but there was no sign of them. "We cannot be sure where we are. Repeat, cannot see land." About 90 minutes into the flight, Lieutenant Taylor reported that his compasses were malfunctioning and that he believed they were lost. The weather conditions worsened and communication with the base became increasingly difficult. Contact was lost for about 10 minutes, but when it resumed, it was not the voice of Taylor. "We can't find west. Everything is wrong. We can't be sure of any direction. Everything looks strange, even the ocean," the voice reported. After 20 minutes of radio silence, the new leader's voice transmitted to the tower, but it was trembling, bordering on hysteria. "We can't tell where we are. Everything is. Can't make out anything. We think we may be about 225 miles northeast of base." For a few moments, the pilot rambled incoherently before uttering the last words ever heard from Flight 19. "It looks like we are entering white water. We're completely lost." The pilots were disoriented, and despite attempts to direct them back, they eventually lost radio contact. For 5 days, Coast Guard, Navy, and Naval Aviation personnel searched extensively in more than 250,000 square miles of Atlantic and Gulf waters, but nothing was found. No aviators, wreckage, life raft, or even an oil slick. Nothing. As if they were swallowed whole by Mother Nature. The Navy launched an investigation into the incident, but nothing conclusive was found. To add insult to injury, a PBM mariner attempting a search and rescue for the flight had also vanished. And we're just getting started. Join us in the next part where we dive even deeper into the sea of mystery.